Welcome back to the Broad Street Benchwarmers podcast. My name is Adam Den. Ethan Leviditis and Carter Watson are here with me. Michael Cormos has a job and a life, so unfortunately he is not here to be with us during the NFL trade cycle that has emerged in the last couple of hours. But we are here to talk all about it. How are we doing, boys, in the midst of what's been a whirlwind of a day?
I'm unsurprised by one. I'm pretty floored by one, and I think both of them have very large implications as for the direction of the NFC. So yeah, I'm ready to talk about it.
I never have to hear the implication that Keishon Butte may be a member of the Eagles again, so I am ecstatic.
You weren't all. I was all in, man. I don't know. Good speed threat on the outside. You know,
I was not all in.
Dontavion Wicks. I'd kind of sold myself there, but alas, I mean, do we want to start there, or do we want to start with the other larger one? Do we cater?
I think we've got to start with Garrett.
We got to start with okay. So the one move that we're going to talk about was the expected one today, right? We all knew the moment 4:00 hit on June 1st, all the eyes were going to be on the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots. The other move came completely out of the blue in the last, I'd say, 12 hours. How are you doing? And that is the Los Angeles Rams, who make the move to acquire Myles Garrett in a trade for a 2027 first, a 2028 second, and a 2029 third round pick. They end up making this trade, of course, with the Cleveland Browns. So let's get our initial thoughts, boys, in a move that, I mean, is going to really shatter our expectations, I think, for this entire NFL season.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, even after the Super Bowl, I was very confident in the LA Rams, especially after the trade for Trent McDuffie, who admittedly after like a downish year, they get him and Jalen Watson to address the secondary, which was their biggest hole. And this is not like this wasn't like an imperative need. Like they had Jared Verse and Byron Young, who were both very solid players and did decent enough interior. But yeah, I think this firmly cements them as like a top two, maybe even the best team in the NFC. And yeah, I think it's fine-ish value for the Browns. I think they definitely could have gotten more if they did this last year when you were thinking multiple, as many as 3 first-round picks and young players. And obviously, Jared Verse is good. He's made 2 Pro Bowls in his first 2 seasons. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year. But players like him become available extremely rarely, and he is like truly a generational sort of talent. He could have retired as a Hall of Famer 3 years ago, maybe. And I think he has. Yeah, there's no signs of him slowing down. There's obviously a ton of money attached to him because he's the best defensive player, maybe even best player in the sport. But yeah, it makes the Rams even scarier than they already were because obviously coming off of an MVP season from Matt Stafford and still have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Kyren Williams and a still solid defense. Yeah, I think the Rams are pretty unbelievable now.
Yeah, for the Rams, they've gotten the best non-QB for my money, if not just the best player in the sport now. And so obviously you part ways with Jared Verse, a player who's had a strong start to his career, but you don't care. You just got Myles Garrett. So it's very exciting when a divisional rival has just won the Super Bowl. You want to keep adding top-end talent to compete with those guys. I think that there's – how should I phrase this? I think that it makes the Ty Simpson pick a tad more confusing now because
Mm-hmm.
no, you guys don't think so?
I think that's where we can have the discussion. And I'll let you finish your point, but I think that's definitely the discussion.
I feel like if we're going in, then we're going in, and this first round pick that we're going to make should be a day one contributor, not the life after this core guy. And granted, I don't know how long this move was really on their radar. I think it's possible that they realized that this was a possibility in the last like week, and they were like, "Oh well, Myles Garrett's available. We've got to do this now," which logical, but I don't like the mesh of the stash pick alongside the very aggressive win now move.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll interject, and I think the reports that came out from Rappaport this morning to what it, and they're true, we don't know, but the Los Angeles Rams made the Ty Simpson pick, well aware that they were going to attempt to pursue Myles Garrett. That was the thinking organizationally, and in my belief, I, regardless of what I view of Ty Simpson as a prospect, as a player, whatever, which is ironic because Carter, I think actually you are the one who views Ty Simpson the highest of all of us.
Yeah.
I think this is a move that you can't make without knowing that, hey, going into that 2027 class, that everybody is kind of, gotten googly eyes over. I know I'm not going to have a first round pick and I'm not going to have the leverage to select my future. So I'm going to try to select my future now. I still don't think it defends it. I would still prefer, this is the thing for everybody, but let me try to buy Kyler Murray on a minimum deal. Let me try to trade for Anthony Richardson and see what my future looks like. But if you are in love with Ty Simpson, specifically as a prospect, I understand the choice because you are making that choice knowing that in 2027, when I think it would have been much more realistic, much more in play for the Rams to be in that market, you're not going to have the avenue to do so. And I think makes it a lot more defensible.
Yeah, and also I think it makes a little bit more sense just considering that they had that Falcons pick at 13, because I don't even think that next year, if they kept their first round pick, they would be bad enough with the roster that they have to be in the range for one of those quarterbacks. Like you would be at QB4, QB5 at absolute best. So again, I don't like Ty Simpson, but I also do think ingraining him in the system over a year or two would probably be best for his development, as opposed to just saying, okay, we just had Matt Stafford win MVP, so we're gonna move on because we made this first round pick, and they, because of all the moves they've had, don't necessarily have an obligation to play the young guys early, and like they've spent traded multiple first round picks, at least in the past few months, for top level players. So already the roster is going to be good enough, so like you don't really, and obviously the system would be good to have a good quarterback, but again, I have my questions about Ty Simpson.
Hypothetically,
I have my questions about Ty Simpson, but also I think surrounding the overall roster with as good as talent as possible is still great. Because like if you're debating between having a pick in the mid-20s and hope that you can trade up for a quarterback, as opposed to making this pick with Ty Simpson and getting Myles Garrett with that pick, you're probably doing what I think the Rams did, like the right thing in the grand scheme of things. They just unfortunately ended up in a pretty bad quarterback class, and I have enough trust in them and like their development and just their overall sort of continuity systematically to maybe have Ty Simpson be okay. But worst case scenario, they just still have a stacked defense and one of the best receiver rooms and like a great running back and a solid line. Like everything around there is in place. They just need to have Ty Simpson develop well enough within the Sean McVay offense.
Yeah. I mean, I think Carter, that is, and I'll ask you this probably will be a major question to you. If that pick at 13 is, let's say, I don't know, let's go back a couple years. If that pick at 13 is CJ Stroud, does that change your diagnosis of what that decision is and what it means for the Rams long term in terms of this trade and the implications of it?
I mean, yeah, I think that definitely plays a factor that almost everybody except for the Rams organization felt like 13 was about 10 picks too early for Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
But even still, I feel as if I don't know. I just don't like redshirting quarterbacks as much as other people do. It feels like it's not necessarily the right spot, and in this instance in particular, where you can add another contributor, and LA was rumored to want another receiver at times, to want, and obviously they did a lot to shore up that secondary, but with the weakness that the secondary had last season, it felt bizarre to draft a quarterback, and it feels even more bizarre knowing that you can't pick one in the future. But I think if I was more of a believer in Ty Simpson, it would be an easier sell. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's understandable. And I think your point to the secondary and the receiver core are crucial as well. Yes, the Los Angeles Rams invested a lot in this secondary. But I think we haven't talked enough about the fact that as good as these corners were 2 years ago, right? 3 years ago for McDuffie, I think was really his peak, where he has not just that all-pro season, but that all-pro season in the slot. They haven't really been elite as a secondary, Kansas City, since that first Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl win. And you have to continue to question, even though I think the infrastructure surrounding that Los Angeles Rams team is going to be better enough to where a guy like Jalen Watson can work to thrive. And of course, McDuffie, they're going to be able to shift him around in different roles. They won't just ask him to be outside. But that's where a move, I think, like this Myles Garrett comes into play, right? Because you're going to be able to have, to an even greater extent, the dominant defensive line that they had, that 22 Chiefs team had, that led the secondary to be as good as they were, and helped cover up for maybe some of the flaws and weaknesses, especially in press coverage of these corners.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we can talk about the inconsistency as of late for those corners, but adding Myles Garrett sort of and again, and it was for, I mean, we haven't gone to the route side of it, but like Jared Verse is a good player, but I don't think he'll frankly ever be like
He's not that good.
Yeah,
No.
like you're perfectly willing to part with him for Myles Garrett, and like the defensive line was already good, and now it's like very it's among the best in the league. So
yeah,
I think that also takes off a lot of pressure from the secondary if they didn't make this move, because even if Jared, like, he would probably realistically have 10 less sacks than Myles Garrett.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, because I think he had 7.5 this year, and Myles Garrett obviously just broke the sack record. So.
Yeah. I think, and we can start talking about Cleveland, and we can start talking about Jared Verse. I think the thing for me for Jared Verse is it's always pressure, right?
Mhm.
And he is among the best in this league in creating and establishing pressure. He's also a fantastic run defender, and is just kind of a great Swiss Army knife to have on your team. I think himself would probably account for like a first and a third in a trade, right? Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
So yeah. I think, if you consider it, the Browns on paper, in my eyes, got 2 firsts, a second, and 2 thirds for Myles Garrett. And that is, I mean, when we were talking about this a couple months ago, we were talking about, hey, the NFL just got rid of the rule where you can't trade, like, what was it? It was you can't trade like 5 first-round picks in a row. Like, Myles Garrett's going to break all of that. And in the end, it was 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third. So I think that, and you guys can talk to this, I think that speaks to what the market continues to be for aging players, but also a little bit of desperation maybe for a Cleveland team that continues to try to shed salary as they go into a new a window, if you will.
Yeah, and I do think that Verse generally fits their timeline better. I mean, obviously, I don't think Myles Garrett's going to fall off in any way in the next half decade, but also I think he's like from like Dayton. He's probably a nice Todd Monken guy. I think Todd Monken like never even spoke to Myles Garrett, so I think it was pretty clear that he was on his way out. But Yeah, like obviously fits their timeline better. They have a pretty young defense in the grand scheme of things. We can talk. We don't know what's going on with the rest of the roster, but again, they have draft capital now to perhaps pursue a quarterback next year in that first round that we just talked about with the Rams. But obviously the Browns are going to be terrible on their own, so it's not like you have to hope that when you're trading a future first, it just happens to end up to be in the top 15, like which happened with Atlanta and LA. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tough spot when you lose a player of that caliber for Cleveland, but you can't be too upset with the return. You got very good ball player in Jared Verse. Obviously, he's a lot worse than Myles Garrett, just like the rest of the league is. But it's you can end up in a much worse situation. End up with a far worse level of compensation, and I think that people, similarly to the Parsons trade last year, it felt as if people talked about the Cowboys getting absolutely fleeced because they didn't get a player of similar caliber to Michael Parsons back. But you just can't do that. Those players aren't like available in trade very often, and the teams that want to trade for players like that are going to keep the other players that they have that are of that level, if they have any of that level. So I think for Cleveland, you're very happy that you've got Jared Verse, and yeah, he is an Ohio guy. You got a first that'll. My expectation is that it'll be at best the 30th pick in the draft, but yeah, you got a first, and you just got to move forward, and you got a good ground to move forward with.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you bring up the Parsons trade because I think that is the interesting discussion, right? Is you have this other superstar player who gets traded less than a year ago. It was the first and Kenny Clark. That was it, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then they moved one of those picks for Quinn Williams.
For Quinn Williams, yeah.
That's true.
It's really interesting to me to have this discussion again in the wake of that and really think about like what is the market for these star players almost, because that was a trade that we shat on, and I'd probably still shit on it. Like I'm still of the opinion that was a bad trade for the Dallas Cowboys, but I think we'd all consider Myles Garrett to be a significantly better player than Micah Parsons, even if he is older to that extent. And so I think it gives you a new lens to think about, like, maybe was the comparable Parsons value that we should have been expecting more similar to this? Or is it a situation where the market for these large players, because of the massive asks that are going to be coming, is simply not as big as we expect it to be, because teams, like you guys said, can't handle, giving up assets that are similar to a Micah Parsons. Are you back again? Or a Myles Garrett.
I think it really comes down to probably the financials in the grand scheme of things, because Micah Parsons was looking for an extension and then he got traded and signed that big extension. And then with Myles Garrett, last year the whole thing was he doesn't have an extension, so teams are gonna have to be in the market for the offer. But now Myles Garrett has been under contract for a year. He's going to be in year 2 of a $160 million contract. And in the trade, you're getting Jared Verse, who's on year 3 of a seemingly 5-year rookie contract, who has already been productive on a Pro Bowl level. So, and obviously with that $40 million price tag, you're already pricing out many teams that are already competing at the level of the Rams. So yeah, it would have been, it was a very small, like, I think I've seen some people, like, in retrospect, be like, "Oh, well, we shouldn't have traded for Jonathan Grenard because we could have gotten Micah Parsons." No, that's not how it works.
No,
Not how it works.
Yeah.
And also, like, and the one thing I will say is I trust the Eagles drafting acumen way more than I do the Rams. I think it is for their own good that they trade all these first round picks for good players.
Yeah.
Because frankly, we just saw what happens when they have high draft picks.
Yeah,
So,
it's a great point.
and
Yeah,
yeah, but even with that, like what's he making, like 25 a year with this new contract, Renard?
I think it's closer to the 30s. I think it's around what Jalen Phillips got in Carolina. So I think it's like the low 30s.
Okay,
But that's, I mean, again, like you said, like that's still, I mean, we think about
like
what
a
the
$10
Eagles
million difference.
heard with. We're going to talk about AJ Brown, but I mean, they're trying to get rid of $30 million essentially
Yeah.
in that deal and trying to do all this to clear, and then you're giving up a third essentially to take that on. So
Yeah.
I think it is an interesting discussion that, getting these veterans that incurs.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So yeah, we want to move on to the big Philadelphia Eagles trade. Carter, I can let you start as the Eagles work to finally, I guess, rid themselves of this situation, the move that we had expected for weeks. They trade AJ Brown for a 2028 first and a 2027 fifth round pick. It will be the better of whatever New England fifth round picks they have.
Yeah, this is obviously a move that was it was expected that it was coming, and then in the last like week and a half, there were 10 rumors about how everyone in the league had actually hijacked this trade and he was going to end up somewhere else. But in the end, it shook out the way everybody thought it would. AJ Brown's going to New England. For the Eagles, I think with the situation it was where he just wasn't interested in being on the team anymore, and there's not much you can do about that. So you move on. You got a first for a good player. I think from Philadelphia side, they may be a tad disappointed that it's a 28 first and not 27. At least that might just be me anecdotally. I was kind of hoping to jump on the New England first place schedule because I have a feeling that in 2027, before the 28 draft, they will not have a first place schedule. But that is for another day. So yeah, I mean, you got what you can for Philadelphia, and for New England, obviously it's a home run if you can keep them happy, which they'll be able to because they don't run the ball nearly as much and they don't have anyone else to throw to. So they may not run into the issues and potential cryptic posts and alleged reading on the sideline.
You never know. You never know.
You never know, but
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
I
we'll
saw some jokes saying like, "Oh my God, the Myles Garrett trade up. It's like he outshined him, so he's got to get traded again." So. But yeah, I think it's a good move for New England. I mean, we've seen this coming since. I mean, apparently he was asking for a trade as early as week 4 of the regular season, which is crazy. But it's the best of a bad situation. Like, I'm honestly a little bit surprised that they even got a first, considering how much of a sure thing it was that he was going to New England. Like the Eagles kind of had very little leverage. Like there was like a small flicker of like a LA rumor, sort of in between this whole cycle, but he has proven to be a number 1 receiver since he came into the league. He has had some injury issues as of late, or is that him just like sitting out? We don't know. I would guess it's closer to actual injury, but yeah, it's like a fine room. I think it's like obviously better. He's been a 3-time second team All-Pro, but it's like him, Dobbs, Kyle Williams, Keyshawn Booty. It's a good room, and I do think in the grand scheme of things, it's like the best for the Eagles because you would much rather have reallocated that money to Jonathan Grenard and have Mekhi Lemon get meaningful snaps, and then you trade for Dontavian Wicks instead of having a guy who is going to be spending $30 million to not play or not give effort. So obviously I'm grateful to won a Super Bowl with him. I was over the moon when we traded for him in that draft. But yeah, I think it's good. It's obviously good for both sides because it gives better opportunities for this Manning offense to develop, considering he probably would have sat out the whole season, like Le'Veon Bell sort of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I'm not going to be rooting for him, of course, because he's gone there's been like a almost 20-year sort of history between these two teams, and it's sort of been prolonged so long that like I have no like emotion about it. Like, to be honest, like we've known it's a 28 first and something else forever. But I don't know. I'm just excited to see Mekhi Lemon and Devontae Smith to be a true one now. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm of agreement in everything besides the fact that this New England room is just a good room. I think if we're of the assumption that AJ Brown really is still AJ Brown, I think this is really, I mean, in my opinion, a pretty incredible room given what Dubs was a season ago and given what Booty has shown over the past, seasons and flashes. And then you have Hunter Henry in that room as well as a solid, reliable tight end. I view that as a pretty significant upgrade over what New England was able to do last season. They have a true man coverage beater in a way that Diggs could be at times, but lacked at times the physicality to be able to do so. They already had shown how they can attack you vertically, and now with Drake May's bread and butter, which is being able to thread the ball into tight windows over the middle of the field, they're going to be able to thrive, and I think that's crucial to what they're going to be. And I think we were talking all this about I don't know if they're going to have a first place schedule a season from now. I mean, I view them more favorably than I do Buffalo at the moment.
sure.
I think the shuffling that has gone on in that Buffalo team as a whole over this offseason, I think, and the step Drake May is going to continue to take, I would view them as the favorites in the AFC after this, and I believe it's a really strong move in that regard. You guys kind of hit it from a Philadelphia perspective. I think there was a lot of, and I've seen it all on Twitter today. I'm like, AJ Brown would not have been a good fit in the Sean Mannion offense. I'm like, AJ Brown would have been a good fit in every offense. He's AJ fucking Brown. So it's very hard to deal with that, knowing what this could have been in a passable system, right? In one that utilizes the middle of the field, utilizes play action, imagining AJ Brown on crossing routes wide open because they were able to pull the corner in zone coverage, things like that. Just imagining them makes this hurt a little bit, but I'm of the understanding that there needed to be a move here because you've got Jalen Carter, you've got Cooper DeJean, you've got Quinyon Mitchell all sitting there waiting for these extensions. And if this did not happen this offseason, this was going to happen next offseason, whether you liked it or not. So I think given all of that, it's a move that is understandable. The Philadelphia Eagles did not have the leverage. They got what they needed. And I am also of the opinion that 27, 28, 2070 first round pick. It's a first round pick. This New England team is going to be where they're at because I think they're going to be a good football team for the future.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the reported week 4 trade request because in that instance, there's nothing you can do from Philadelphia's standpoint.
Yeah.
At week 4 of the 2025 season, Smith, Hurts, Brown, and Saquon hadn't played a game start to finish and lost yet. And so if that's the situation he still wants to leave, then he still wants to leave. And you've just
a week ago they had just beaten the best team in football.
That is true. That was his game too. That was so
what do you really do there?
Yeah. There's nothing you could do from that end.
Yeah.
I think similar to what Ethan said, it'll be hard to actively root for him because he's in that town, but yeah.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles host joint practice, the New England Patriots in late July, and I I'm very excited to see the
Yeah.
storylines that come out of that. That's
I'm
Yeah.
sure
gonna-
Elliot Shore Parks will have some amazing tweets.
can't doubt it. Well, yeah. Trying to think any last. I think one thing we should touch on as well, because we touched on the edge rusher market, is the wide receiver market. And that is a market that still leaves Stephon Diggs out there. He has been acquitted. Is
Are you talking about for the Eagles?
not for the Eagles. I think for the league in general,
Okay.
as
Yeah.
the cycle continues to circle. Like,
Yeah.
what does it look like for him?
I mean, he's like the best option. I mean, it'll probably be a small, like, sort of. I mean, at this point, prove a deal, just because like he had a fine enough season with New England, and I mean, at least in the Eagles' perspective, they have like a sort of no tolerance policy for that sort of stuff. So it would sort of just come down to teams that want a veteran, like a very similar situation to what the Patriots did in acquiring him, just like a veteran presence on a youngerish team.
Yeah.
Same can be said when he was with Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of a similar belief. I think, where he gets thrown around is going to be something to watch. Juwan Jennings signed earlier. He was another name that I think was getting thrown around. But as a whole, like you guys emphasized, this Eagles wide receiver room, I think is still interesting, and that will depend on Carter's boy, Mekhi Lemon, coming through in that sense. Yeah, so who are we firing tonight?
I think after the LA, so I think it was just California
Yeah.
trip. We'll say Kevin Long, just because
Yeah.
we can't at the baseball anymore. So
Yeah,
It's a tad delayed, but my vote is Tony Brother still.
man.
we might be seeing him in a few days. So.
Yeah, I mean,
He'll be back around to fire him again at some point of that final series.
I would like to echo that, but I also think about the crew in Game 4, so I can't necessarily do that. I'm trying to think of a basketball related one.
The issue is I don't remember who the crew was in Game 4 by name. I always noticed
You
Tony
just
Brothers.
know
That's
Tony
the problem.
Brothers. Yeah, exactly. his mere presence just haunts you. I'll say Chet Holmgren because
I take
Good
no
answer, good
issue
answer.
with that.
yeah. See you guys soon.